Hey guys, I was very curious about Claude Skills and wanted to test out what exactly is it, how do I create it, how will it help me. And this weekend I spent quite a few hours trying to figure it all out, and I wanted to actually share with you all what I've been able to learn. So before we get into actually seeing the Claude Skills creation process and what it can do, I just want to set the stage that a Claude skill is really nothing but a recipe. So if you're making scrambled eggs with cottage cheese, for example, and there is a very specific way that you make it, you create a recipe so that every single time you create the scrambled eggs, it comes out the same way. That's a good way to kind of think about like what a Claude skill is. That is, you put down a set of instructions on how to do go about a certain process, and every time you run that skill, it's essentially guaranteeing that the output will be the same. So that's what a skill is. It's a set of instructions, and it is essentially teaching Claude what it should expect as inputs and what the outputs should look like. So that's what a Claude skill is. And the other thing that I should also clarify, because this was definitely something that was confusing me a lot, is whether you need to have Claude Code and Claude Cowork, etc., in order to create Claude skills. And a lot of videos out there are actually talking about building Claude skills with Claude Code. So, my experience firsthand, not having even a pro Claude account, is that even with a free Claude account, just a singular chat agent interface of Claude, no Claude Code, no Claude Cowork, you can actually create skills. The caveat is just this, that the skill that you create is not going to show up in the folders of your Claude interface, but you can store it on your desktop, and you can just tell Claude to access this file and use that skill. So it's as simple as that. So with that, let me share with you what I did over the weekend before I get into sharing my screen. So I tested it out with a quick skill, and the skill is for researching YouTube trends on certain topics. And I did a bunch of back and forth with Claude and perfected that skill. And let me demonstrate for you what it looks like to actually use the skill and what went into the making of the skill. Okay, so you're seeing my screen here with me in my Claude account. And as you can see, this is a free plan. It's not a pro. It's not Claude Code or Claude Cowork or anything like that. And I am actually going to use a skill that I created called YouTube Trend Research Skill to research for this very video, Claude Skills for Marketing. And once it goes through the steps that it has been trained in the skill, this is the output that it generates. It generates a report called Claude Skills for Marketing. It has an executive summary about the particular topics. And it also has the top 3 keywords with their estimated monthly search volume as well as the trend direction. It then goes on to give me details on different clusters for the topics that are associated with the topic that I asked it to research. So it gives me information on Claude Skills for Marketing, around Claude Skills Education, around full course tutorial, around paid ads and ad platform skills. And as you can see, for each one of these clusters, it's kind of giving me a trend line, the monthly search volume, why it's trending, some content angles, and some example videos. And this is all the training that I did in the skill, that whenever I do a YouTube research, I expect it to give me information that is organized in this manner. And it also gives me links to the sources, and it gives me links to the videos that are actually doing well right now on YouTube, and these are verified links. So this is the output of running that skill for researching a topic around Claude Skills for Marketing, and it goes on, and it's organized by clusters. And in the end, it gives me an overall creator opportunity. So this is a pretty simple skill, and this exists on my desktop as a file called as YouTube Trend Research Skill.md. And when I wanted to use it, all I had to do was to say in the prompt, use this file, use this particular skill, and run the report for me. And now I will show you what that skill MD file looks like. I did not write this or create this, but this is what the system generates in the backend. And as is typical for any skill.md file, it'll have a name, it'll have description, it'll have some instructions at the top as to how it would be used, including what are some of the trigger words for it. If I say things like find me something that's trending on YouTube or what's popular on YouTube, etc., then this particular skill will be invoked. And the YouTube trend research skill has an output format which is very specific. I wanted it to have an executive summary on the top. I wanted it to have a table. I wanted to have cluster breakdowns. And I wanted each cluster to have a topic, trend score Y, and also examples of some of the videos that are ranking well. And this is the research process that I wanted it to follow. So all of this is documented in this skill. And alongside with certain caveats and what not to do and what tone to follow, etc. And now I'll show you what I actually did to help Claude create this .md file for me. So the process that I followed was actually really simple. I had a conversation with Claude in learning how to create a skill, and I zeroed in on this particular topic. So I said, create a skill for researching YouTube search trends around a certain topic. It asked me a certain questions about, what the output should be like, where should it get its trend data, and I said, I'm not sure, whatever works best, and said, okay, we'll use web research, we'll use Google Trends, and we'll probably not use an API because it'll need quota, etc. And then it talked about the structured output for each, and then it said, okay, the skill is drafted, and let's test it out. When it was drafted, it looked like this. I could just download it, but I had to go through a couple of rounds after I did the testing and saw what it was producing. Right. I went ahead and modified it. I gave it some direction on the summary on the top, on attaching the links that are showing up on these searches, also give me the search volume, etc. So we went back and forth on this process, and then I tested it out. And I was able to get essentially to a point where I felt like the skill was good. Then I tested it on different keywords like AI and marketing. And now, as you can see, it's getting closer to my final product. And I also tested it across other areas which are completely different, like I said, acupuncture. So this is just to say that, when you're going through the process of creating the skill, you just want to make sure that you iterate, you teach it the way you want its output to be. And once you're happy with it, the skill is created. You download the skill and you just save it on your desktop as a .md file and just use it, invoke it in your normal dialogue and your normal workflow working with Claude. So this was a simple example of how I used a Claude skill for YouTube research, but then over the weekend I did go on to make a more robust skill for my end-to-end podcast production process, and if there is interest, I'm happy to share that as well. But I was really excited to finally get to the bottom of like how to use a Claude skill, and now that I am bursting at the seams with ideas on what all we could be doing with skills. So hope it sparks similar enthusiasm and a lot of ideas for you all as well. I truly enjoyed the process, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot more. So thank you.